happened in qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix? What a qualifying session we just experienced. Okay, let's get into qualifying, shall we? And begin with a question from Ace12 Adam. Do you think this new format produced excitement? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? And I feel like Tommy might need to maybe initiate an official apology to what Formula One has tried to do. But for those of you that maybe are unaware, there might be a small minority that haven't even watched qualifying and just listened to us for an update. We had Q1 hard tyres, Q2 medium tyres, Q3 soft tyres, and it was so good. There was not one lull in that entire qualifying session. It was dopamine McGee, was it not, Tom Bellingham?
It was incredible. Yeah, I need to apologise. I'm that meme that everyone shares of, sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game or whatever that people that people put up. My first initial reaction was, why are they messing with qualifying? We need exciting races, and I still want them to implement the all three compounds into the race. But so I was kind of like, why are they doing this for qualifying? It's not really going to change much. And there's reasons why it was so exciting. I think the teams will maybe get used to this if they do implement it. But it did make the session so much more exciting, particularly Q1, because when do we ever see everyone flying out the pits and just doing constant laps? It was just exciting from start to finish, like you said. It was just really, really, really good.
And I think one of the main reasons that it was so good is because the teams couldn't prepare for it. You had the hards, the mediums, and the softs, all of which that need to be run at a hot lap level. It was about pushing it to the limit, and that's not really what the hard tyres and sometimes even the mediums are used for these days. Generally, just the teams not knowing what to do. And funnily enough, all the teams are moaning, all the drivers are moaning, because they can't get comfortable. They can't get used to everything.
We love to see
but that is what we want to see. And that's one of the good things about sprint race weekends, is the fact that we only have one practice session before they get into the proper nitty-gritty stuff. Again, we see it. They're not prepared, and we get a mixed-up grid.
Yeah, really good. Well done, F1. I apologise to you. It was very, very good. All the way through. Really good.
Yeah, absolutely sold. So now let's get into the more detail side of Q1. Obviously on hard tyres, and the 5 drivers that were out were Albon, Tsunoda, Russell, Magnussen and Sargent. Obviously the big scalp, as we said, was George Russell there, who just couldn't get a lap in, especially at the end there, where the gentleman's agreement went fully out of the window and into the toilet again, because lo and behold, the gentleman's agreement does not exist. It only exists if you're gaining from it, if there's some kind of, it's me next, the gentleman's agreement is in force, and then someone comes flying up the inside. George Russell, I think, got passed by 5 cars, I think it was, before he then could start his lap. So he was completely and utterly shafted by that, because he started to wind up for his lap. A car goes up the inside. I can't remember who it was that was the final car to go through. But he then lost 3 tenths before he even gets down to turn 1 because of the compromised run that he had. After that, with the obviously the tyres being a bit colder, the brakes being colder as well by sitting around for so long, he couldn't put a lap time in such a close qualifying session as well.
The fact that all the drivers are out setting laps and it kind of being every man for itself at the end, like you say, the gentleman's agreement went out the window, which is quite funny. And I did fair play to George for at least kind of not blaming anyone but himself, really, and the fact that you take that risk, don't you, being in the bottom, not getting your lap in. He could have quite easily had a big rant about everyone passing him, but he's right that it's a gentleman's agreement until you're the one about to get knocked out and you go, sorry.
A question from one Pablo SF1. Should they have to review the gentleman agreement and actually apply consequences if someone doesn't respect it? No. It's not a rule. It's Formula One.
Agreement, like you say.
Exactly. It's an agreement. It's not anything in the rules. And I think that's properly boring, to be honest with you. If that's something that's implemented where everyone has to follow each other. Okay, you enter the last sector, then you're not allowed to pass anyone who's also on an outlap about to start a lap. It's just not something that needs to be policed. This is Formula One, the top tier of motorsport. You figure it out.
Also, everyone would do a Fernando Alonso 2007 park it. Like if you'd made it through and you knew your rival was out, you'd just go really slow around the corner.
Well, you can't pass me,
you can't pass me, haha. No, that's not what we need.
And let's talk about the top of the leaderboard. Apparently, according to this Q1 session, Alfa Romeo are the greatest team on earth on hard tyres. Zhou Guan Yu ended up first, which then made me think, God, why are we just not only running hard tyres for Q2 and Q3? Because that was a rather large surprise, to say the least.
It was. I didn't think it'd mix things up, but yeah, Zhou being P1, I mean, he was good anyway, so as Frank barks, because he's a big Zhou Guan Yu fan. He's buzzing.
Big Alfa Romeo fan this weekend. You know, Bottas he was getting excited for as well during the stream, so great to hear Frank's unwarranted thoughts. Let's now go to Q2, where the medium tyres were used, and out in this session was Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, and Pierre Gasly. Probably worth mentioning that Daniel Ricciardo, by a whopping 13 thousandths of a second, was clear of Tsunoda in Q1, which put him through to Q2, where P13, not bad. I think he's done miraculously well. I would have happily put my hands up and gone, yeah, I said Danny Rick was a biggest good surprise, but in reality, Tsunoda should probably beat him in qualifying.
Yeah, when he's been driving the car, like Daniel Ricciardo's not driven that car, and they said that it would be a struggle for him because, you know, he's done a test in the RB19, but that's a very different car because it's driving at the front in the hands of Max Verstappen anyway. Daniel Ricciardo can be very happy with himself that he's put in, a good performance. I think P13 is probably about as high up as AlphaTauri have been a lot of the time in qualifying anyway, so yeah, he's done a good job.
Other things to talk about, obviously, Carlos Sainz being knocked out in Q2. Ferrari woes continue. They just didn't look good, really. I mean, the hard tyres, they came good right at the end in Q1. But in Q2, it was again left to the very last minute. And it was Charles Leclerc that actually knocked out Carlos Sainz in the end with his final lap. So it's just not worked out well for him. The two Alpines, your biggest good surprise, Esteban Ocon, down in 12th.
Yeah.
Gasly had his lap time deleted right at the end, but I think that only put him from 14th to 15th. And then Lance Stroll, just doing Lance Stroll things.
I've had a very good day in the predictions, but the Alpine one is not one of them. The fact that I said that they'd be good. Yeah, not great from Alpine. Stroll, poor performance. I mean, Aston Martin, for a track that they're hyping up, Alonso didn't do particularly well either, but he's at least made it into the session. Stroll, yeah, just very, very poor performance to be right down the order.
At the front end, Lando Norris was fastest in Q2 on the medium tyres and looked great on the mediums in FP3, and then brought that same form into Q2 on the mediums. And then again, you're thinking, God, if we had mediums for Q3, who knows what could have happened. But and he was ahead of Hamilton and Verstappen. And we were very hyped at this point, weren't we, Tommy? Where we were going on the Twitch watch along, Matt P1 Tommy, if you haven't followed us already. We were thinking, God, this could be very close. And it was. Let's move to Q3 then. And my goodness me, what a finish to that qualifying session. Of course, the big talking point, Lewis Hamilton taking pole by 3 thousandths of a second ahead of Max Verstappen. And it's funny because our reaction, which you're about to see, wouldn't suggest that Tommy is a Max fan.
No.
Hamilton! By a tenth, by over a tenth. This is all his. This has to be his. I'm having a heart attack. Here we go then, Hamilton to the line. Oh, he's got it! Come on!
Oh, what?
What a qualifying!
If you'd have told me that at the end of 2020 that I'd be cheering that much for Lewis Hamilton knocking Verstappen off pole. At the end of the day, though, and I think this is fair for a lot of people. Obviously, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Max fan, but I'm a Formula One fan first. And to get to see close racing again, someone different challenging, it's exciting. And I do genuinely mean it when I say I don't want Verstappen to just clear off and lead every single race and be miles ahead, because it's not fun for even a fan of Max, because I want to see him racing.
Question from Vettel Laporte. With Max starting on the dirty side of the grid, do we expect him to take a measured approach into Turn 1 like he's previously done when he's been jumped this season, minus Austria? Or will the red mist descend when he sees a small gap to the inside of his arch nemesis? I mean, being on the dirty side of the grid's not a great start for Max. If anything, that then potentially opens the door for Lando Norris, who, of course, is eager, chomping at the bit to try and get his first victory, and one with which the car looks like it could well possibly be there as well. He missed out on pole by less than a tenth, did Lando, which we thought at one point, oh my God, is he going to get pole? He was up on Verstappen through the middle sector. Verstappen didn't improve, which was surprising. It does more probably suggest that maybe Lando will get a good run on Max as opposed to Max on Lewis, but who knows? It could be anything down towards turn one. You could have Bottas bowling again. He's in a great position if he wants to get another strike.
Oh, God, he is, isn't he? There's no doubt in my mind that Verstappen will not be able to help himself if Hamilton gets the jump on him at the start. Surely it's going to be spicy with those two on the front row because Max won't be able to help himself, I don't think. It's going to be fascinating to see how it turns out.
I guess he doesn't need to, even though he's leading the championship, he doesn't have to protect a championship because he's 99 points clear of Sergio Perez. So he can do whatever he wants. He can have fun out there. He can send it up the inside of Hamilton, see what happens. I've already declared Lando Norris the victor of tomorrow's race because, those two just cannot seem to not touch each other. But that's going to be interesting with Hamilton's race tomorrow, though, because I think Toto Wolff was saying something just about the soft tyre just really switched on that Mercedes, which suggests that perhaps Mercedes aren't great on the longer runs, the mediums and the hards. I mean, Russell not making it through to Q2 even, after being knocked out in Q1. Part of that was, of course, due to some problems being held up. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Hamilton start on softs tomorrow, which is not actually the tyre that they want to start on because it just doesn't have the longevity. But that's the tyre they have the pace on. So I do wonder if they will go for a quicker stint, perhaps even commit to an extra stop to just make sure that they're on the softs as much as possible. But then on the flip side of that, they only have 4 sets of fresh softs across the whole weekend because of this new format and the way in which they're trying to be more sustainable with how many tyres they use. So I don't think Mercedes are the favourites to win tomorrow, but it's great that he's on pole.
Hungary is a really hard place to pass. You've got that final corner with a lot of, the cars are no way near as easy to follow as they used to be. And getting around that corner, you've got to have a very good run to be, even with DRS, to be able to make the pass. It's a short straight, really, as well. I don't think it will be that easy. So I think for the enjoyment of the race, I think if Max does end up second or maybe even third, we could be in for an absolutely fascinating race. Ironically, because of all the stuff we've been complaining about all year, that they can't follow or pass each other. You never know, because he can't win every race.
For God's sake. Put it on a t-shirt. That being said, we have just launched P1 merch, which you can find a link to in all of our or bios. Have we put it in our bios yet, Tommy? No?
Yes. Yeah, it's in the
cool.
bios of
all social media bios. So yeah, go and check that out if you want to. Let's reflect now a little bit more on Lando Norris, and also shout out Oscar Piastri. I've noticed there's no questions about him, but he's P4. So let's shout out that it's a McLaren lockout on that second row of the grid. Once again, looking amazing. Question from Craig Tilley 95. Could McLaren challenge Max's Red Bull in terms of race pace, taking into account what we've seen from them in quali? Now, I would actually say that Lando Norris has a better chance of winning the race tomorrow than Lewis Hamilton, based on what we've seen with the tyres. Lando looked really good on the mediums, and the mediums are usually the preferred tyre when we go racing. So I think Lando looks pretty good, which is, I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth in the 2023 season. Those mediums could come into play and that pace if Hamilton and Verstappen start battling, so on and so forth. So many variables that could happen tomorrow. But I think McLaren are in with a shot again.
They are. McLaren fans should be celebrating this like a win, because if they can be good at Silverstone and then go to a completely different track, such as Hungary, and still be in a fight for pole position, arguably, well, they were even closer to Verstappen than they were at Silverstone. They are showing that those upgrades work on 2 completely different circuits. Brilliant from McLaren.
Zhou Guan Yu. Let's very briefly talk about him, because he deserves all the praise in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
How is he 5th? He's in an Alfa Romeo, which has been absolute dog this entire year, apart from right at the beginning where they had a great outing in Bahrain. Both got through to Q3. They're 5th and 7th on the grid. My brain cannot comprehend that. Unbelievable again. And the problem is for that, with Alfa Romeo suddenly thrusting their way up the front, and McLaren as well, you've got Aston Martin down in 14th. You've got the Alpines in 12th and 15th. You've got the Ferraris in 6th and 11th because of these random, whatever the midfield and top midfield is. We don't know what the pecking order is every single race weekend we go to. But doing that means that some drivers, you go, God, they're down there. Perez is in 9th. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Zhou Guanyu, what a performance. I mean, Alpha looking really good around there, beating Bottas, who we know is a qualifying master. For me, Zhou Guanyu is the star of qualifying, and he'll actually go quite under the radar just because of everything else that's happened, of the craziness of that session.
Librarian Bert comes in with a question. What's bigger, Perez making it to Q3, Danny Rick making it to Q2, or Lewis putting it on pole? Perez making it to Q3 is a non-story. He should be there. My goodness me, still 9th. So if anything, it's bigger that he's literally qualified 9th after making it through to Q3. 4/10 off his teammate. When the pace differential isn't as big between Red Bull and the rest of the teams, this is what will happen. Yeah. Perez 4/10 off Verstappen maybe in the first few races is starting in the top 3, top 4. He's 9th. We've got another Perez comeback drive. I'm so bored of comeback drives.
And he'll finish
Perez.
4th, and it'll be like, oh, but he finished 4th from starting 9th. It's like, he shouldn't be starting 9th. His teammate is 3 thousandths off pole position.
Danny Rick making to Q2 is obviously a reasonably big story because I think that is impressive from his side. And then Lewis putting it on pole, I think, is the biggest story. Of course it is. Yeah. It's Hamilton versus Verstappen into turn 1. We've already discussed it. I am so ready for the race now, Tommy. I don't know what I'm going to do as those 5 red lights come on, but you will be able to see it on Twitch. Matt P1 Tommy.
I'm hyped. Hungary, said it at the end of the last podcast. It delivers.
Thank you, everybody, as always, and we'll see you very soon tomorrow for our watch along. Of course, all of our content that you know is coming. So look forward to it. We'll see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.